Good afternoon, and welcome to today's Adweek webinar, and a happy Thanksgiving week to everyone out there in our audience. Today's webinar is going to cover how the Home Depot drives sales on Pinterest, and is being brought to you in partnership with Pinterest. I'm Stuart Feil, Custom Publishing Director of Adweek, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Before we begin, I just want to go over some of the features of our webinar platform and also the logistics of today's event. Our formal presentation should go somewhere in the 30 to 35 minute range. Afterwards, we will have plenty of time for audience Q&A. So if at any point during today's webinar you have a question for today's speakers, just use the question tool on the left side of your screen, and we will get to as many questions as we can following the live presentation. We are supporting social sharing on today's webinar, as we do on all Adweek webinars, and you'll see the hashtag we're using. It's hashtag AdweekPinterest. See it there on the title slide. So if you are out there on Twitter or on any other social networks, and you want to participate in the conversation, just use that hashtag. Give us a shout out, let us know you're out there. Also up at the top of your screen you will see that there is a widget that allows you to follow the conversation with that hashtag. It is not too late to invite your colleagues to today's webinar. You probably received a confirmation email earlier today or a reminder email, and in there you will find a bit.ly that can serve as a link over to our registration page. So share that with your colleagues and have them join us today. And if they can't join us live, today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand, so they can come back at any time, and listen in, and of course you can always return and listen again. Also want to point out that if you are interested in getting a copy of today's slides, you will find them in the resource list, which is the tab up at the top of your screen, and so at any point you can download a PDF of today's slide deck. Finally, if you enjoyed today's webinar, please check out the Adweek webinar calendar, www.adweek.com/webinars. That's webinars with an S, or follow us on Twitter @AWWebinars. Check out what we have coming up. We've got a few more coming up in the month of November right after the holiday, and we've actually got a full calendar coming up in December. And when things slow down, of course, it's always a great time to catch up on some of your continuing professional education. Let me head on over and introduce today's speakers. Very happy to be joined by two people here. Amy Venner, who does retail strategy over at Pinterest. And if you've joined us with any of our prior Pinterest webinars, Amy has been, of course, a very good representative of the Pinterest brand and always shares a lot of really practical information and insights that brands, particularly retail brands, can use to enhance their Pinterest presence. And today we are being joined as well by Melanie Babcock, who's Senior Director at the Home Depot, where she leads their Agile Marketing Group, and that includes things like their audience-led marketing practice, social media practice, and media data partnerships. So let me pass this on over to Amy for today's presentation.
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you, Melanie. I really appreciate your time and participation in the webinar, and all of you listening. Obviously, this is not a slow week for retail, and so we're hoping that what you get out of this webinar is helpful in both current programs that you're running, as well as you start planning towards 2018, which is just around the corner. All right, so I'm going to start out by just talking a little bit about taking us back in time a little bit, talking about when stores played a somewhat different role in people's lives when there wasn't digital, and retail was very much about creating inspiration and being able to help consumers imagine what it felt like to live somewhat of the American dream, so that they could browse and discover and experience those things in real life, because the merchandising experience was part of that. And I started my career in retail anyways, on the merchandising side. And that was back when Walmart.com was first getting started. And, the tools we had then versus today were a lot different. So when you think about merchandising online, whether that's, mobile or desktop, the idea of how you create that inspiration and that ability to evoke emotion is a very different process than how it's been done traditionally in stores. And so, I wanted to talk a little bit about how digital marketing in general for retail had shifted to become much more focused in recent days with that last signal of intent. What is that last signal of intent that will lead to a transaction, and focus a lot of the energy around optimizing that last signal of intent? But as we all know, there's a lot of things that changed that created some danger signs around creating that optimization towards the transaction. And some of those things are, mobile devices allow us to shop and shop for price, and can often become and lead to disloyalty or low conversion rates because it's really a lot of price checking, or in general declining foot traffic in store or via SEO for a number of different reasons, and potentially sacrificing incremental sales in place of paying for sales we would have otherwise gotten. And all those are signs of really over-optimizing to that transaction and potentially losing that magic of discovery. And so, what I think is an interesting way to look at the evolution of digital marketing and how we went from sort of where we were to where we're going today, a big part of how we think about that is based on some of the stats in this McKinsey study, where they have identified that what used to be a very loyal-driven purchase now is only, of their group of consumers in the study, was only 13% of people that were purchasing because they were loyal to that brand, as opposed to folks who are shopping around, because it is so much easier today to shop around. 87% shop around, and almost 60%, that 58%, were switching. They're called switchers, tempted away. And the reason I'm calling this up is just to set the tone that what they found is, of the switchers, the brand they switched to was much earlier, was presented much earlier in their consideration set. In fact, that red stat there, 69% of brands purchased by the switchers were part of that initial consideration set at the beginning of their research process. And that's important because the consumer who is going through their path to purchase is in a planning mode before they get to price comparison mode or sharing what it is they got or bought or experienced in a social environment. They're researching and looking for ways to consider what they want to actually buy. And that is the point when Pinterest is out there ahead of some of the others in part of that planning process. If you look at sort of a path of a pinner on Pinterest going from a state of inspiration into discovery, active evaluation, and then acting by going over to participate with the retailer and fulfill what it is that they got inspired by, this activity was all fueled, or in many cases, by a state of inspiration. And that's what makes Pinterest a little bit different, in that there is this planning and inspiring and discovering mentality that happens before there is this, I narrow down to what it is I want and I'm ready to buy. And we forget sort of the opportunity to court the consumer before we move them into that click to buy sort of mentality that we've gotten to in general in our industry. And so, there was a study we did with a partner who helped us identify and break out. This was a deep focus as our research partner, what the inspired shopper, who's in red is a pinner and the gray is a non-pinner, the inspired shopper, how that played a role. How did inspiration play a role in the purchase they ended up making? And what we found is obviously you need both inspiration and information in order to make a good decision as a consumer. But inspiration really creates that committed consumer who moves through that process with a bigger level of commitment. So their level of interest in what they're buying because they became inspired is going to be a little bit more committed, a little more strong than the informed shopper. But again, you need both. And so what I wanted to do is just set up a conversation around what is that inspired shopper, that shopper who can see the possibilities of what they're actually going for, that feeling that's evoked from that I need it feeling that creates that consumer experience that we're talking about here today. And some of the results of someone who is inspired is that they're spending more than they originally planned. They're more committed because they're shopping across new categories, or they're purchasing more products than they originally intended, more likely to share that experience with a friend. And that results in what we found through our partnership with Oracle Data Cloud and DLX is that most of the campaigns that are run on Pinterest are driving not just sales, but incremental sales. So that sales lift is actually higher for those that were exposed than a holdout group that didn't get exposed to the campaign. Because in theory, everyone's still buying. It's just, did the ad actually create incremental sales? And what we saw from the Oracle Data Cloud norms on their platform is that Pinterest campaigns, consumers exposed to a Pinterest campaign, are driving 4 times the in-store sales lift and reaching a higher penetration of new customers because of the mindset of the consumer. And so before I hand it over to Melanie to talk a little bit about some of the things that they've been doing at the Home Depot, I wanted to just remind folks that the way our ad solutions at Pinterest map to retailers, key objectives are the following. We've got 3 different types of objectives that we can help retailers with. And within each of those objectives, we have different solutions. So for example, in awareness, helping retailers launch new products or stay top of mind to enhance consideration. Or the second one is acquisition. Can we help drive lead gen, new customers, just general new sales, app installs, driving traffic. And then lastly, retention and helping retailers cross-sell, upsell, improve multi-channel connections, or increase the purchase frequency. So those are different ways that we offer solutions to retailers. And at this point, I'd love to hand it over to Melanie to kind of talk through some of the ways that the Home Depot, through her leadership, have been focused on helping drive sales on Pinterest.
Thank you, Amy. Hi, everyone. This is Melanie from the Home Depot. And we've been using Pinterest for quite a while now. We were one of the first promoted pin partners back in 2014. So we've been looking at Pinterest as a way to connect with our customers and to generate sales throughout kind of that purchase funnel. And in full disclosure, we always put Pinterest in that inspiration category and not necessarily in that sales driving category up until in the last 2 years. We really feel that Pinterest has significantly changed in their offerings for retailers like Home Depot to really drive that full funnel approach with our customers. In the next 2 slides, I just have 2 examples of how Home Depot has used Pinterest to drive that inspiration-informed and purchase with our customers. One is with a holiday decor campaign, which I think would be a little obvious choice that we would use on Pinterest from a true inspiration of a really pretty product. And then second, we chose a water heater, which of course is not a pretty product, but it definitely showed some amazing results through Pinterest. So I want to go through both of those with you today. So like I said, holiday decor. This is a big category for Home Depot. We are in the thick of it right now. It is, T-minus 2 full days before Black Friday. But frankly, Home Depot has been in full holiday mode with our products in store since October. Our regular event calendar, which is what we use to drive people to our store and site for events like our Black Friday month, starts early November. And historically, we have had this event calendar for years, and we are tried and true to this event calendar, which means we start advertising our Christmas decorations and holiday decorations in early November. Well, last year, we thought, I feel like we know that Pinterest consumers and users are using Pinterest to make plans. and to think about their Christmas decorations or their holiday decorations, whether it be inside or outside their home. And so we decided to launch earlier on Pinterest than any other channel, digital channel or traditional channel, with our holiday decor campaign. This came with a lot of raised eyebrows as we were going off of our normal traditional cadence of marketing, but we really wanted to see if we got out in front of a Pinterest user to see how that would drive consideration for the Home Depot for its holiday decorations. And we were right. What we saw was through our website traffic, we could see people starting to come in that October timeframe, specifically for our holiday decorations. We're like, well, this is an interesting insight. I mean, we have plenty of Halloween decorations. Why aren't they clicking on that? Instead, they're making plans for holiday. So thinking about and planning what their homes are going to look like, what style they wanted this year for Christmas. And so by generating ads earlier in the cycle for inspiration and information, when people came into our stores or came online, they were fully prepared with the selections that they had in mind. So we believe that this tactic of just moving our timing up to be in line with the Pinterest user, not just the Home Depot customer, really created a winning strategy for us. And it really did work out for us specifically. And we started seeing sales in October to the point where our merchandising partners kind of came to us and said, what's going on? We're seeing a lot of sales during these weeks, and these are historically kind of quiet weeks for us because we're not in our full holiday swing. So that was really important. It was an important step for us because it made us rethink how we use Pinterest as a retailer kind of programmatically throughout our entire organization. Home Depot is a conglomerate of different businesses, as you can imagine if you've been into our stores, and each of those businesses or aisles have very different needs. And what we found is in our planning aisles, think of like paint and decor, people want to spend time with your brand and your content before making those big decisions. So we have really leaned on Pinterest to help us come back with, hey, people are looking for your products during this time of year, and they may be shopping during that time of year. So how do we strategically plan together how to drive consideration and interest of the Home Depot during that really important planning and information phase of their shopping journey? The next campaign is water heater. Now this is probably the most unsexy product that you can think of. And when you think of Pinterest, especially when it comes to home improvement and home decor, which Home Depot is most known for, you would think of beautiful room scenes or a pretty couch and some great paint. But what we decided to use Pinterest for in this particular campaign was really for awareness. So water heaters, not on everyone's list to look for, really are a need-based item. And tankless water heaters is new technology in this department and in this category. And this is a really expensive item. It could be, $1,000 to start and up. And so what we have found is our Pinterest user who shops at Home Depot really likes to do their research, and they like to come in very well informed, especially on a product like this. You're not going to buy a tankless water heater every day of the week. So you really want to do your research and work with a trusted partner like Home Depot to make great selection. So what we have found with Pinterest, again, is yes, we use Pinterest for all kinds of beauty products like paint and decor and flooring and lighting, but how well would something like a water heater work with our Pinterest customer? And we found it worked really well. We took an approach, as you can see, with our creative, and that is the question of why go tankless. So if you're looking for a water heater, tankless is an alternative option, and frankly, it can be a more expensive option, but it does have inherent value. So this particular pin was very much directed to the value of the tankless water heater and the benefit that the customer could get, and it really drove engagement with the customer so they could really feel that they were well informed about this product before coming to our site or coming to our store. Another component of this pin is that we added in our home services part of our business, which is installation, to really help that customer feel that they had the full solution when they walked into Home Depot. So on this particular ad, we looked at not only unique creative, where we asked a question, why go tankless, and then paid it off with four call outs. We then used a couple of different ad techniques to drive this product. And we found engagement pins and retargeting are one of our best performing ad units on this particular unit because, again, I think when people are searching for tankless water heaters, they're in a moment of need, and they needed to be reminded to come back to Home Depot with those kinds of tactics. So as you can imagine, our water heater teams and our more kind of home systems teams at Home Depot have really jumped on the bandwagon of Pinterest because it does really produce significant results for us in categories that may not be naturally thought of as a place where people would go for this kind of information. So from just those two case studies, and we have hundreds more we could share, but on those two, we've really continue to learn with our Pinterest partner. They've been a phenomenal partner to us, and they help us learn and they help us strategize. And really, it just comes down to our customers, they start early on Pinterest. They go and they research and they learn and they pin in their considerations. And many, many times they come to our store, phone in hand, pins in hand, and ask for help. So starting early on Pinterest is really important. We needed to move up our event calendars or our media plans earlier in the cycle to capture those customers who are searching and learning on Pinterest. Of course, mobile first. I feel like as advertisers, we've heard mobile first many times over the last few years, and definitely Pinterest is a mobile platform. So as you can see with our creative, it was really all about attracting the eye in a mobile environment and helping customers navigate through Pinterest to Home Depot and HomeDepot.com through their mobile device and even bringing that device in store. Educational creative has been really powerful for us, even in those more decor type of categories where people want true inspiration. Education comes as a part of the package, whether it be through copy or through imagery. It's really important for us, and we've seen a strong response rate when we have those, when we marry those two things together. And lastly, Pinterest is a unique channel for the Home Depot where we invest in a pin and we promote that pin. And all the good engagement it receives and the click-through that it receives lives when we turn the campaign off and turn that pin into an organic pin. And so we really get a very long value out of the investments and the pins that we create in Pinterest because it has this earned media component to it that lives well after the campaign duration. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Stuart for some Q&A.
Great. Well, thank you, Melanie, and thank you, Amy. A lot of really solid information being shared here, and I know the audience is really paying attention. We've got a bunch of questions queued up. But before we do, I just want to remind our audience, if you do have a question for today's speakers, just please use the question tool on the left side of your screen. I know there are a number of them already. We're going to get to as many as we can over the next 10 to 15 minutes, and if we don't get to yours, I will make sure that they get forwarded to today's speakers so they'll have a chance to reply to you offline if possible. I want to remind you a couple other things. First off, if you want to download a copy of today's slides, you will find them in the Resource List tab up there at the top of your screen, so you can feel free to download a PDF of the slides, share those with your colleagues, and review them afterwards. Also, today's webinar has been recorded and will be available on demand. The recording should be live about an hour and a half to 2 hours after the end of our live event. And so everyone will receive an email with an alert letting them know that the recording is there, and certainly feel free to share that with your colleagues or return and listen to this again. So let's hop over to a few of the questions that came in from the audience here. And Amy, let's just talk a little bit, some questions related specifically to Pinterest. And Can you maybe talk a little bit about some of the options that are available for retailers that really want to quantify the in-store sales impact of Pinterest advertising? I mean, we always think of this very much as in a digital environment, as digital to digital, but certainly digital has a significant impact on brick and mortar and in-person sales. So do you have a sense of how you can quantify that?
Yeah, good question. The biggest, so there's a number of different partners out there that help connect impressions from Pinterest to in-store sales from the retailer. One of our primary partners to date has been Datalogix and Oracle Data Cloud, and being able to connect the actual ad exposure with a test and control methodology, so you're getting at the ability to understand the actual impact, the actual incrementality of that ad. Other partners that we have that we're working with, we've got a few that we're testing out in alpha and beta, one of them being Axiom as a partnership. But yeah, there's a few different ways for us to do that, and there's a lot more that we're excited to continue to work with retailers on. But that in-store impact is really key when we look at 90+% of sales in the retail industry overall still taking place in store. So cracking that nut is key to unlocking value.
Got it. Melanie, let's toss one your way here. One of the things certainly when you work for a larger company, as you do, you've got sort of multiple departments and multiple silos across your marketing departments that are ultimately touching some of your outreach, whether it's your advertising or certainly some of the things that you do on Pinterest, whether it's your social group, your search, your analytics, etc. Can you maybe share some of the tips and some of the learnings that you found on getting sort of that internal alignment going across an organization?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. I mean, and I say this we haven't necessarily solved it all. I feel like this is an evolution when it comes to educating and enrolling people in the value of what we're doing as a social media team and as an audience marketing team. I think that when it comes to our specialty practices like search and programmatic display, they are very, they really know their field and they're really crafted in that field. And when they see something like Pinterest, it gives them pause because Pinterest aligns to their specialties as well. It's not a one-trick pony, right? It has significant search capabilities, and it has great visual capabilities, and it has audience matching capabilities. And so naturally, those kind of specialty groups are already interested because it aligns to their objectives. When I think about our merchandising groups, who are our ultimate internal customers, and our consumer and pro are our ultimate customers, our internal customer, they're interested in seeing how their products come to life in a new way with different customers. And Pinterest is getting really, really good about using our first-party data and using their data sources to target customers who are in starting their purchase journeys. And so that's a really a big interest to our merchandising partners. So to be honest with you, from just a connective tissue perspective, and at Home Depot, we're a big company, lots of people to talk to, but ultimately, whenever we're given the stage, we really describe the value of this channel and how it can really promote their business and give good case studies, and that generally onboards people right away. But it's definitely a process and an opportunity that doesn't necessarily present itself on a big stage. It can be just a hallway conversation that happens, but it's something we've been pretty deliberate about as a team to speak the value of a channel like Pinterest to these key stakeholders. And because they're willing to do something new and to listen to new opportunities, it's made it a lot easier on our side to create those integrations. But it's definitely something we have to work at on a daily basis. And it's not easy.
I can imagine. can certainly imagine. Amy, let me send one your way, and I think this is sort of one right up your alley. And there were actually several people here who have asked about, the use of video on Pinterest. And I know this is something we had covered when we did a previous webinar together of how video was being used. But what they're really asking us, sort of how do you use it effectively, and is video really, should that be used on Pinterest? And then Melanie, if once Amy's done, I don't know if the Home Depot has used any video. If there's something you want to share, feel free to certainly come in as well.
Sure. Yeah, sounds good. On Pinterest, video has become an ad format that does such a great job at not only creating that inspiration and all of the emotional elements that come out, but also gives the opportunity to educate. And so getting messages across on video on our platform where you don't have user-generated content on video to compete with, your brand really stands out. I would say, there is a number of different ways retailers are using it, and you're right. We talked to Walgreens about the way that they used it in their holiday campaign last year. I think one of the newest capabilities and ways that retailers are finding success in driving both volume and good return on video on Pinterest is through the capability of doing a targeting that allows you to take that video and put it in front of the eyeballs who are most in market, but then retargeting those that actually have the strong rates around, whether that's engaging with the video, completing the video, or even just starting the video, being able to re-engage those consumers and continue to court them along their path to purchase has become a real powerful way to not only get the reach you need, but also the performance. So, and Melanie, I don't actually know to what extent the Home Depot is using video on Pinterest, if yet. You mind sharing?
We are. Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to share. So we are, and I would say that we are still in a test and learn phase with video on Pinterest. Video is something that we use pretty extensively across other types of channels, whether it be social or programmatic display. So that's not a new format for us. However, what's new to us is how do we use and think of video strategies when it comes to Pinterest and how customers are using Pinterest in the Pinterest platform and the full screen that we have available to us when they expand in their feeds. So when we think about using video, we don't want to repurpose something that we are using in another channel, although we have done that, and I'm not saying that it's not a bad strategy. We're really trying to push our boundaries to think about how to use Pinterest in a new way. So one of our most recent examples that we launched this past fall is targeting a very important customer to us, and that's a mover. And a lot of times I think when our customer, the Home Depot customer, who they see a finished room on Pinterest or in any other, in a magazine or anything like that, and they're like, great, that's pretty. But how do I get there? That's really the how is the hard part. They are inspired by the pretty after picture. Their home probably looks like a before picture, but they don't know how to get there. And so we used video on Pinterest, and we called it built-in pins, which is and the video unit is actually, it starts with a blank space, and we have people building 4 rooms. A kitchen, a bedroom, bathroom, and a dining room, and bringing in all of the kind of the how-to elements like how to hang a light and putting up chair roll, laying floors, installing cabinetry to our decor, and that all of those videos run within seconds. And so it's kind of sped up, and people can see that how-to part all within one pin unit. So they're not just inspired by the after picture. It actually gives them kind of a view of what the how-to looks like through this video unit that we've delivered exclusively through Pinterest. That has generated a lot of opportunity for us. So from a video unit, just that one unit, it's very cool, right? It looks cool, but it's generated a lot of new customers, I think, coming into the Home Depot. And if you've watched that unit, if you've engaged in that unit, then I can remarket to you with maybe the products, the projects that are in those pins, in those videos. And so it's a series that we did a bit of a test and learn this year on, and found it to be really effective because I think it plays to the emotions of a customer who's taking on a big project, whether it be just redecorating or if they have to tear down and paint walls and tear up floors. It really helped them kind of put them at ease through this video unit that showed the whole process within just a few seconds. So for us, that was exclusive for Pinterest. We thought of Pinterest. We thought of that Pinterest customer. We thought of them having, scrolling through their news feed and seeing that video and how it would relate to us. It was highly targeted, just like Amy said, highly targeted to a new mover audience. We had an insight that they want more than just the after picture. And so for us, video has been highly successful, and we're looking at how to expand our investment in video for next year.
So, Melanie, if I can just, quick follow-up. When you mentioned sort of you were saying a short length. Can you give just a sense of maybe how long those videos are? I mean, a DIY type of thing can be a half-hour show. It can be those have also been done in 6 seconds. So, do you have sort of a
they were
varying
lengths, and my team is going to kill me if I don't give the exact seconds, but I think they were between 15 and 30 seconds.
Right. So but these are short. This is not an in-depth video, but this is but it's a much more of a quick hit kind of a thing.
It really is a quick hit, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We're not expecting people to sit there and watch for any length of time. It really is truly an ad unit, and so we have taken those ad unit best practices and applied it to this. It's supposed to play to the emotion of, oh, that's not as hard as I think it was. When I see those after pictures, it feels hard. So, by the way, I'm getting a text from a team member that just said, Melanie, 30 seconds. So it's 30 seconds. So I appreciate that.
Well, there's nothing like real-time feedback.
That's right.
So I just want to remind our audience, if you've got a question for Melanie and for Amy, just ask it. We've got a whole bunch of them here, so we're going to get to what we can in the next 5 minutes or so. Amy, and Melanie, again, feel free to jump in on this one too. But, one of the things we've been talking about here is a lot of things that are seasonal, whether it's the fact that we're in that shopping season now, but really over the course of the year, there's certainly a lot of seasonal shopping. And people are asking sort of, how do you sort of plan for that? Melanie, described really starting your holiday season, in October and seeing that work. But there certainly are other holidays, whether it's wedding season or other major shopping holidays. Amy, do you have a sense of what is the sort of the right time for planning that? And do you have a calendar that you ultimately encourage some of your retail people to use?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think Melanie did a great job of talking about how that worked for them as they looked at home decor during the holiday, like the actual Christmas holiday season. I would say, we found at Pinterest that, and we call them pin sites, the idea that when you look at different categories, and it's going to vary by the amount of time that it takes to make those decisions, by the amount of money that those decisions imply, but that they're 100% year-round. It's just they ebb and flow at different patterns. Just like I come from a search background, and I definitely know, like, from a search perspective, while the demand is always on, there's certain times where it's heavier because of the sort of time of year that it's in. So whether that's related to weddings and the seasonality around weddings, or babies, or like New Year, New You, I mean, people are getting ramped up now from a consumer perspective, planning, 30, 60 days ahead of time so that they can be ready to organize and get things that they wanted done while they're on their vacation. They know sort of what they're going to do in their basement project and what they're going to buy ahead of time so they can use that time off to actually organize, or at least feel like that's what they're going to do. So, it varies, 30 to 60, sometimes 90 days in advance of the actual event. People are planning their vacations right now. It's not just on a retail perspective. So how do you get your products and messaging in front of that? We publish a Pinterest 100 once a year, where we kind of highlight what are the biggest trends that we're predicting for the coming year, and that'll be coming out here soon for 2018. And I think that'll be a good opportunity for marketers to think about when and what to say about to consumers on Pinterest about the products that match those interests. So hopefully that gives you a little more idea of that planning mindset and how that translates to early research behavior on Pinterest.
Exactly, and certainly as you were talking about the discovery phase, I mean, that is really where a lot of this planning goes on. Again, just a reminder to our audience, we probably only have time for maybe one, maybe two more questions, but again, feel free to ask it. We will forward these over with a chance for people to reply offline. I also want to remind our audience of a couple other quick things. We've done actually a series of these webinars with Pinterest, so please check the Adweek webinar calendar. You'll see they're all available on demand, related to really some of the different phases of how some retailers like Walgreens and Wayfair and Target have used Pinterest. So definitely check some of those out. Amy, I want to get into and I think we get this question all the time when we do these webinars, and that is the issue of KPIs. We talked a little bit certainly about some of the brick and mortar and following someone through into from digital into the real world. But maybe you can go as to sort of what are some of the ways that you want to measure the impact of your Pinterest campaign and what some of the key metrics that people should be using are.
Yeah, no, I think that when you talk about KPIs, one important element to always come back to is what was the objective. Because you can measure everything and you can actually get KPIs for everything, but they kind of distort the story if you're not focused on tying it back to the actual objective of why you even started a campaign. And so I shared a slide right before I handed it off to Melanie around 3 key objectives, whether that's going to be building awareness, driving acquisition, or driving retention. And, sales can come from a combination of those things, but if you can, and thank you for flipping to that slide, but I think as a marketer, if we can realize all right, if our focus is driving new customers, we have to make sure we're able to measure of all the conversions that took place, what percentage of them come from new customers versus customers that are already buying from us. Or maybe you even have a goal around lapsed customers. So being able to say, of all my lapsed customers who haven't bought from me within a certain time frame, I'm going to target them, and I'm going to look at what percentage of them reactivated and see. Even another KPI could be lifetime value. What is the lifetime value of a customer from one platform versus another? And it's never black and white because obviously customers live across platforms. So when you have to measure the multi-touch attribution and start getting KPIs that span not just Pinterest, but Pinterest plus email or Pinterest plus Facebook, being able to work with a partner like Newstar who does multi-touch attribution so you can understand the value of someone who maybe is more middle or early touch and a platform like that versus a platform that's very much indexed towards that last touch, where most of the industry gives credit today because that's just how we measure things. And so getting smarter about that multi-touch attribution model and how that should impact the way you look at your KPIs. So that's a few ways. And I also wanted to just call out both from a KPI perspective, but also from the insights question earlier. Pinterest has a business blog at it's a business site, I should say, where there's a area for blog posts, an area for different forms of advertising and getting educated on how to do that and some customer success stories. If you go to business.pinterest.com, there's really helpful information there that'll extend some of the questions that were on this webinar.
Great. Well, thanks, Amy. And just to alert our audience, there will be a link over to business.pinterest.com in the email that we send out later today covering the on-demand version. But check that out. You find the link there if you can't remember it from here. Amy and Melanie, I want to thank you both today for joining us. A lot of really terrific information got shared, and I know the audience was really enjoyed a lot of it. We got a lot of thank you notes coming in through the Q&A. Just want to remind our audience of a few quick things here. Again, the webinar was recorded, so You will get notification of that in a couple hours. The slides are available in the Resource List tab at the top of your screen. And of course, if you enjoyed today's webinar, check out what we have coming up at Adweek, www.adweek.com/webinars. That's our calendar of upcoming events as well as our archive of past webinars that are available on demand. And you can go on over there and you can check out some of the previous ones that we've had with Pinterest to get some more information, some more insights. So again, I want to thank our speakers today. I want to thank our audience, and we look forward to seeing everyone at an upcoming Adweek webinar.